Hey everybody, today we're going to be talking about what makes a society so great. What makes up a based society?
We have different ideas for what constitutes an ideal society. For me, an ideal society is one that doesn't feature fascists murdering people who are just trying to survive in a capitalist system.
So right out the gate, it is understood that a society is only as strong as its families. Right now in this country, we have a fatherless homes issue, which I have discussed previously on many occasions.
I don't know why, but I'm suddenly hearing racist dog whistles again. Mainly it's the common far-right talking point about fatherless rates in African American families. Interestingly enough, the main reason for this was because of the increased incarceration rates that took place during the war on drugs. A racist domestic policy that targeted African American and Hispanic American men for marijuana possession that was implemented during the Reagan administration.
Not only that, but we have a sexually deviant left that wants to attack the nuclear traditional family.
Yes, because two consenting adults in the LGBTQ plus community being in love, trans and non-binary people existing, and the basic concept of consent being taught in health class means that society is under attack by the left. Given how rigid and patriarchal the nuclear traditional family is, with the dad working 9-to-5 jobs while the mom stays at home and does the chores, it should be under attack.
But it is important that we as individuals continue to fight against it. How can we fight against it, though, you may be asking? It's very simple. Get married, have children, and pass on your traditions and values.
I get the feeling that this argument only applies to white families. If a family of color attempted this, Paleocon Dalton and people like him would call them welfare moochers and heckle them to get actual jobs. Or if they were refugees fleeing from countries that have authoritarian dictatorships that came to power because of military coups backed by the US, Dalton would tell them to stop stealing our jobs and go back to their countries.
Raise your children in a Christian home. Teach little Johnny over here how to play baseball or how to play football or how to go hunting. Teach him how to fend for himself and be a man.
What if little Johnny would rather play with dolls or practice ballet? Does that make him any less of a man? I made this argument over 4 years ago when I responded to the issue with misunderstanding gender roles by Rage After Storm, but I feel like it bears repeating. This is a perfect example of how patriarchy hurts men too. A man must change his personality to conform to the idea of how society expects him to behave. Not every man wants to be Derek Jeter when he grows up. Some men aren't interested in those hobbies, but it doesn't make them less of a man. And some women are interested in those hobbies. On a side note, his vision for what constitutes ideal children is both very heteronormative and cisnormative, as it excludes LGBTQ plus children, especially trans and non-binary children, from the equation. But then, in Paleocon Fantasyland, the only people living in society are cis heterosexual white Christians.
Teach little Susie over here that she is incredible. She is a strong woman. And being a strong woman comes with a ton of responsibility. Upkeeping the home, being a loving, caring, and nurturing mom, and raising her children with compassion and love when that time comes.
Translation: Little Susie should be a subservient doormat to her husband. In an old-style Archie Bunker get back in the kitchen form of misogyny that people like you mistake for a fantasy land. Don't even give her a choice. It's a woman's role to be the homemaker, whether she wants to or not, especially if she doesn't want to. You're really doing a terrible job at hiding your misogyny, aren't you, Dalton?
Another basis for a productive, strong society is obviously religion. And not just any religion, I'm talking about the one that matters, the one that's right.
So, we moved on from promoting traditional gender roles to theocratic fascism. I'm guessing that means anyone who doesn't believe in Christianity will become the victims of yet another genocidal crusade.
I'm talking about Christianity. First of all, America was founded on Christian morality.
No, it was founded on European colonists committing genocide against the indigenous people that were already living here, and then building what would become the United States on the back of slave labor. Unless that's what you mean when you say Christian morality.
And it is super important that whenever we have our children, we need to be passing down these morals, these values, these traditions.
Does that mean teaching your children that they shouldn't eat shellfish? that witches should be burned alive, that slavery should still be legal, with slaves submitting to their masters no matter how cruel, and that disobedient children should be put to death? And does that mean you're going to teach your daughter that she should be forced to marry her rapist if he pays you 50 shekels of silver? Because not everything featured in the Bible is worth adhering to.
John Adams once said that our Constitution was written for a moral and religious people. He could have not been more correct in that statement.
Ah yes, John Adams, who stated in a letter to Thomas Jefferson, "I almost shudder at the thought of alluding to the most fatal example of the abuses of grief, which the history of mankind has preserved, the cross. Consider what calamities that engine of grief has produced." Putting that aside, the Constitution itself contradicts your argument. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. That means you're allowed to practice your religion however you want, but the government is not allowed to force it down my throat.
Jesus saves. And out of everything else in our world today, this is the most important. Talking about Jesus, bringing Jesus to other people, and spreading the gospel. Having faith within the society is not only good spiritually, mentally, and physically, but it creates a sense of unity.
If Jesus came back, I highly doubt he would be a conservative. His arguments about loving thy neighbor, supporting immigration, and hating the rich fly right in the face of everything conservatives believe in. Also, he probably wouldn't have been white either.
Obviously, number 3, and like I said, not going in any particular order, being in nature, being natural. We live on a beautiful planet. We should be embracing that beauty. Taking a look outside, going for a hike, a jog, going hunting, fishing, whatever it may be, has shown to have very positive effects on the brain and your mental health.
I agree that nature is beautiful and that it should be protected. What's your opinion of the Green New Deal? Do you think it's a valuable cause, or do you think it's evil because of how much you hate socialism and because you think climate change is a myth? Because climate change is affecting our planet almost every year. We have fracking to blame for that, by the way. And we have to ensure its survival for the sake of both our children and our grandchildren. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, as most of his next few points are just appeals to emotion, mainly about how most of nature was created by God and how small he feels whenever he looks up at the night sky. If you're curious as to what you missed, the link to the video is in the description below if you want to hear his full argument. Trust me, you're not missing that much.
So, if you're watching this right now, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should go outside. I implore everybody right now to go outside. Touch some grass.
Oh, I agree. If you're watching Dalton's video right now, you should probably go outside. Not because his advice is good, mind you, but because most of the fascist talking points he's making aren't worth listening to.
A ton of people forget this one. Pride in nation. It is extremely important to have pride in where you come from, where you grew up. I, for one, love the United States of America, and I do not want to see it ruined.
That makes one of us. Personally, I wouldn't mind seeing the United States be ruined, with the pillars of white supremacy and free market capitalism that have been holding it up finally coming crumbling down in the process.
I want to see the United States be a moral place, be a virtuous place where people are proud, where people are happy, people are healthy, and people are not afraid.
If you want all of this to happen, then you would be in support of Medicare for all, free college with existing student loans being canceled, the Green New Deal, abolishing police departments with local communities handling rehabilitation instead of imprisonment, protecting Planned Parenthood, and supporting organizations like GLAAD. However, given your paleoconservatism, I highly doubt you're interested in anything I just mentioned.
We are the strongest nation in the world. We are the world leader. We should be acting like it.
The only reason why America is considered a strong nation, at least economically, is because of the resources we steal from the global south.
We should be setting an example for other nations, not getting involved in other nations, but simply setting an example of virtue and morality. Perhaps you don't agree that our government should not be enforcing morality, but I think many of us agree that we should at least be incentivizing morality.
Given that translating far-right talking points is almost like a second language to me, here's what I could translate from that last part. We shouldn't invade foreign countries. Trust me, we aren't as murderous as neocons. That being said, I still feel like my morality and beliefs should be pushed on the American public, even if they don't want them. Defunding Planned Parenthood and GLAAD while cops continue to murder unarmed black men, and while the Bible is shoved down people's throats, is a good thing, actually. Not gonna lie, Dalton's vision for a perfect society sounds more like a nightmare rather than a fantasy. I don't want to live in a society where women aren't allowed to be given a choice of whether they want to work or stay at home. The Bible is pushed down people's throats while members of other religions are persecuted in the process. Members of the LGBTQ+ community are demonized just because they exist. And cops are allowed to continue murdering people, especially unarmed black men. Really, the only thing that sets paleocons like Dalton apart from neocons is they're not as war hawkish as their neocon counterparts. Otherwise, both movements are awful and should be left in the sands of time. Like the fictionalized version of the 1950s that paleocons want to return us back to. This concludes today's video. All that's left of Dalton's video is Dalton promoting his channel at the end, which I never show because I have no intention of endorsing these fascist monsters. What I do have interest in endorsing is a Google Doc that my friend Some Random Geek created that features charity links for our comrades, in addition to left-wing causes that need all the help they can get. You can find the Google Doc in the description below. Until next time, I'm Danny Quartz. Thank you all for watching.